Episode 31 of the Bmoney Beastin podcast. I am here with my man, Sam the Squamous. This dude just started killing social media. I don't know, a couple years back, I started noticing, and he made a cool promo video for us with his girlfriend on the beach. That was super awesome. But dude, you wrestle out at UNLV. And you were telling me before we got started, you're in grad school, bro. I'm going to tell you, I'm a big fan of, I've always been, I'm from the South, so college football is like king, right? So like, I've always kind of kept track of I love the little schools and college football and whatever. So I always liked, UNLV, and I used to bet, like parlays and stuff, and I always picked them. So dude, I know you're from Hawaii, which is also freaking awesome, dude. So I just want to know about you, dude. How did you, we've talked over the years, and we talked about how, I'm from Georgia and, Hawaii hadn't had a national team yet and a lot of things. Let's just see how did you get into doing this? How did you get into wrestling? How did you get into going from Hawaii to Vegas? Dude, let's just talk about it.
All right. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm so grateful for you letting me be on here. But I must say this journey to wrestling is quite long, and it goes all the way back. There's steps to it. So it goes all the way back in high school, and I've never wrestled in high school. I've always done stuff like football, boxing, Muay Thai, kickboxing. And it all started in a way when my Muay Thai coach in high school said, Sam, you should do wrestling. It will help you because you're super lengthy, and it will help you utilize your size. I did not listen to that. I ended up doing all the other sports. And then when it came to college, my first years in college, I walked on to a college football team in Oregon. Only stayed there for a year and a half. Then I transferred to UNLV. I didn't exactly quite discover wrestling then. I took a free jiu-jitsu class. I ran into someone on the wrestling team, and he said, hey, man, you're very strong. You should come out and join wrestling. And I thought about it. I was like, maybe. Then COVID hits. After COVID, when everything is starting to come back online, I randomly run into this guy again. And he said, dude, come out, join wrestling. You will love it. And so he took me to one of the practices, and I met with one of the coaches. His name is Jordan Karst, and he's a former D1. Jordan Karst was a former D1 from Utah Valley, and then he transferred to UNLV. But he was the coach at the time, him and James Downing. And they were kind of skeptical of letting me on because I had no wrestling experience whatsoever. But they're like, okay, we'll give you a little shot. We'll let you practice, and rest is history. From there, that first year and half of the next year is when I wrestled.
Dude, I want to know this. How did you... Dude, you started way late in life, which is really interesting, right? And for you to start so late in life and to carve out this social media niche or niche, or however you pronounce that, in your niche in the wrestling space is phenomenal, dude, because everything you post is so relatable, right? That's what I think a lot of these social media guys, they don't really get, that you have to relate to your audience, right? If you look at the Bmoney Beastin Instagram page, I post about products maybe once a week, right? Everything else, I'm just relating to the audience that we're trying to reach. And someone else that does that great is like Muggsy, the Bull Junk, right? Like him and Caden Henschel and whatever. But dude, you do it pretty phenomenal too, because like everything you post is like spot on, and it's like this relates to a circumstance or a situation that a wrestler would obtain to. So for you to start so late, because at this point you're in college. You're 20, 21?
Oh man, I wish I was that age again. I'm actually 5
No,
years.
I mean when you started wrestling, you were what, 20?
Started wrestling. I was 21 or 22.
Okay, the first time you ever stepped on a wrestling mat.
Oh yeah.
Dude, see, that's unbelievable, dude. Was there even like opportunities in Hawaii to wrestle growing up? Was that a thing?
Oh yeah. There was definitely high school wrestling. There at the time when I was still in high school, there wasn't any clubs on my side of the island. You would have to either drive across like a long way just to get to a club in town. But now recently there's a club in Wailua that the head coach Jason and Coach Mac opened up for younger kids and older, even I think they're doing older individuals. I'm not too sure, but they have a Wailua wrestling club now, and it's super awesome to see wrestling grow on that side of the island, because it gives a lot of younger individuals an opportunity to get into that sport. I know jiu-jitsu is big as well, and so yeah.
Dude, being from a remote area, like for me, I didn't even know, and I've said this before, like when I was in school growing up, dude, the first time I ever even was told about the sport of wrestling, it was after my like 6th grade football season. And the linebackers coach for the middle school, because I went to a school that I think our middle school team had like 14 coaches. It was like a high school staff, right? It was like ridiculous. Well, the guy that coached linebackers was the wrestling coach, and he was actually a better wrestling coach than he was a football coach, right? Like he just was. And he won several. He ended up like we won the league every year in wrestling. And then he went to the high school and won like several state championships and whatever. And I remember he said, "Dude, you're really aggressive. You should wrestle." And I go home that night and I tell my mom, I said, "Mom, I think I'm going to wrestle." She says, "Well, you just finished football. How are you going to wrestle?" I said, "I don't know. They said I could do it at school." And she said, "Oh, okay, well, go ahead." All right, cool. Now that night, I'm thinking to myself, my son did the same thing before he got into it. Granted, he was like 5 and I was like, 12, 13, whatever. So like mindset wise, I should have probably been a little smarter, but we both had like this thought, like, shit, dude, we're going to have like a cool ring name and like a mask and like some badass entrance music. And back then, this was like I was in 6th grade in 2001 ish. So during that time, I grew up like a WWE fan, WWF at the time, and Triple H had that song made by Motorhead, right? That it's time to play the game or whatever. And Motorhead did it. And dude, that was a banger of a song, right? Like to this day, you could hear it and be like, dude, that's pretty badass. And I remember I was like, dude, I got to have some kind of, and I was thinking this like from a Friday to a Monday before I started wrestling, right? I'm like, dude, I got to have like a banger like that, and I'm like, this is, and then of course Monday rolls around and we get there in the warm up, we run like 5 miles and then we start drilling. And I'm like, what the hell is this?
Like hook slams, man.
Yeah. I was like, what this is not what I signed up for. And then the reason I told you about the Motorhead part was the first week, I got beaten like challenge matches or whatever, And I remember I wrestled a JV match, before the door or whatever, and I think I got pinned or something, and I don't remember, but the varsity group, right? I was a 6th grader. So they were basically all the 8th graders, beat the shit out of the little ones, and they come out to Triple H's Motorhead, the game song, right? And I remember thinking on that Friday how badass that was. And then they had the lights come down and like strobe lights. and all that. And they're running, and then they start warming up and was like, dude, I got to do that. Like, that's cool. So, like, that's where I kind of bought into it. Granted, I realized that after a few years, I was a better football player, and that's what I stuck with. And, dude, I don't know that I would have had this rejuvenation of the love of this sport if I hadn't seen what it did for my son. And how much, like, at this point, you know, he's got a love-hate relationship with it. You know, he's having a rough year. He had a really good youth career. He's a freshman, but he got in some trouble. So, you know, he got suspended for the season, so he's not able to compete. So he's got this love-hate relationship right now. He's like, man, I don't know. You know, he's like, I want to wrestle, but, like, you know. So it's what it is, right? But at the same time, for a long time, it kept him on such a great path. And I think he'll find his way back and things will be okay. And I just realized how there's got to be more and more, like, people that try to get kids involved in something to get them on a path to keep them, you know, out of trouble, you know, like learning work ethic and, you know, good things for their life. And that's really what the basis of Bmoney Beastin was. And now, of course, we started, you know, we did the shoes and gear, and we got the guys back here with this cool card game we're building out that's going to be eventually like wrestling Pokemon. So, you know, it's kind of morphed and whatever, but, like, I don't think I'd have had this rejuvenation or this whatever of the sport had Bryson really not got into it. So I'm really glad that he did. And I'm really glad that I get to talk to people like you and things like that. So, dude, you got a club on your island now. Granted, you're in Vegas, which, dude, how cool is it to be in Vegas, man? Like,
gosh, man, talk about Vegas. The gambling, ooh, it's oh man, being in Vegas again, it's so nice and so nice and wonderful. Maybe not the people driving, but nice to be in a familiar area, because I not only picked up a job that pays well, it pays for my grad school, and on top of that, it gives me the opportunity to, like, still connected with the UNLV wrestling team. I'm no longer wrestling. However, I am their social media manager now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, why wouldn't you be, dude? You're like killing it, bro.
Thank you. I do feel bad about the Squamous page, especially on TikTok and Instagram, because I know that I can't give too much time into it as much anymore. So that's why it's a good thing for CapCut, because I could just, like, think of something and then easily make something up in like 5 minutes and then post it, then go back to, like, studying or work and whatnot, or focus UNLV page. So that's basically been taking up my time, but being in Vegas, it's nice. I like it. I get to talk to some of the new recruits. They're very, really awesome. We have a growing women's team now as well. So that has been phenomenal to watch them grow, because when I was around for my last, I think it was for my last year. Yeah. There was only like 2 girls or like 3 girls that stuck through the whole season. And then from there, they just gradually continued to grow. And now they're at like 14, like a solid team.
That's awesome, dude. Because, like, women, you know, I read a stat not long ago. Women's wrestling is like the fastest growing sport in the country right now.
Oh yeah.
And dude, like, you know, I follow a lot of athletes, right? And there's just one girl that stands out. I think she's like 14 or 15. I don't know where she's from, New York. I think I sent her a set of Matt Clash cards. I want to say a month ago. I think they're in Connecticut. Okay. And dude, she posts content like every day of different. And dude, she'll wrestle state champ boys and go after them. Like, she's a bad little chick, dude. Like, she's bad. And she posts some of the greatest, like, wrestling. She's got like 400,000 followers on Instagram, right? What? And like, it's crazy, dude. Like, and she posts like whether she wins or she loses, like, it's just raw, like, real, like, you know, it's really cool. And you see that. And whenever I ran across her, like just, following people, looking up, whatever, I thought about something that I had forgot about. And Bryson will kill me for telling him this story, but I'll say it anyway. About 3 years ago, we went to Canton, Ohio, to up in Canton, of course, the Hall of Fame, Pro Football Hall of Fame's in Canton, Ohio. Well, right behind the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Tyrant, Tyrant, that travels and does tournaments, Tyrant Wrestling.
Yeah.
Tyrant. They did one called the Hall of Fame Duels or something, right? And we went up there with a guy we knew who had a team, and Bryson wrestled this girl named Lyric Hitzer. She's a freaking killer, dude, okay? And he beat her 5-4. And it was a banger of a match. And, boys, when they wrestle girls, they're like, I can't lose to a girl, right? And, dude, he was down, I think, late, and he came back, got a takedown, win the match. But it was a banger. Fast forward 3 months. This was like in October. So, I don't know, maybe a couple months, 2 or 3 months. We're at VAC in Virginia Beach, and he wrestled her again, and she beat him 5-4. Oh, and I remember he come off, and he's like, and the crazy part, at the end of the match, and I'm not making an excuse, he lost. But at the end of the match, she was on top. He was trying to, all he needed was a reversal. He was going to win, right? And he was coming out the back, and his head was stuck right under her ass. And she locked her legs, and the ref's on the other side, and he's shaking like hell. And I remember he's like, she locked her legs around my neck, dude. What? And I was like, dude, you got beat by a girl. And we drove home like 11 hours, and randomly, now she's awesome, dude. To this day, she's still a killer, man. And no disrespect of anyway, right? Like, we're going down the interstate, right? And Virginia Beach back to North Georgia is probably like an 11-hour drive, right? And every time, just randomly, we'd be listening to music or a podcast or whatever, and I'd all of a sudden, just randomly, every couple hundred miles, I'd be like, dude, you got beat by a girl.
Yeah, added salt to the wound.
Right, for like hundreds of miles, man. But like, I just told that because, dude, the explosion of women's wrestling is amazing to see. And I think that's something that, if I'm never having another kid, just to throw that out there. But if I had a daughter at this point that was growing up, I think one of the main things I would try to do, because not only, even if she wasn't very good at it, she's going to learn self-defense skills, and that's something that I think that women should have, right? And she's going to learn how she's going to stay in shape and have, and so I think, this is just a PSA for anybody who has a daughter, find a wrestling club, man. Put her on the mat, even if it's a couple days a week, dude. I'm telling you, it's growing fast. And Ken Chertow, you know who that is? Ken Chertow, he was an Olympian. Ken
Chertow. What weight class?
I have no idea. It was back in the 80s.
Oh.
Yeah, he runs camps in Pennsylvania now, but he had brought some school up there. I think they were D2. He founded like their women's program, and then I guess somebody else took it over. But he was telling me one time, we were kind of chatting there, because he's connected to my partner in Bmoney Beastin. Mm-hmm. And I kind of got like through like this messaging kind of thing that there's apparently a lot of scholarship money out there right now for women's wrestling that is unclaimed at this point, right? So like, you want to get your daughter into college, man, put her on a mat. So, but yeah, I just threw that out there. But dude, so you got this job, and you're now the social media guy for UNLV, which I need to follow. I'm actually going to do it while we're sitting here live right now. Yeah. Let's see. What's the page name? UNLV Wrestling, is that it?
Yep. That's it.
Let's look it up, dude. We're gonna talk about some of this stuff. UNLV, because you're the social media guy. Actually, I am following UNLV Wrestling, the official page. And explain to me, because I never understood this, and maybe I should know this, but I don't. What is NCWA? What is that?
Oh, that's the National Collegiate Wrestling Association. So basically, it's sorry, I should know this like a lot better. But basically, it's a place where it's like another form of college wrestling, but this is where a lot of like clubs teams could go into, and a lot of the time when teams are transitioning from NCAA like D2 to D1, or when they're transferring to different divisions, there's usually a gap year between hand, and they can't the school can't wrestle. And this is this little organization or thing is great because during that gap year, the team could transition to the NCWA and ultimately compete. The people who compete in the NCWA could still make All-American. They could go to nationals, and they compete against teams all over the world, including teams from Puerto Rico as well.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
I wish I had a better explanation, but I'm just going off of what I know. But right
Because
now,
I know like Tennessee and Georgia and like for all the SEC schools, they all have like club wrestling teams, right?
oh yeah,
They would be like in that division, correct?
yes.
Okay. So have you ever wrestled a team from the South when you were wrestling for EUNLV?
Shoot, I can't remember the guys that I wrestled for. I wrestled. I wrestled people from the West Coast when I went to Puerto Rico for nationals. I wrestled some other kids. I can't remember what school they were from, but they were a whole lot tougher than they may have been, because they were a whole lot tougher than my usual competition. I was like, "Gee, you guys are strong." And I got
what weight did you wrestle in college?
174.
And you're like 6'4", right?
6'3", yeah, around there.
Dude, to me, I would feel like, I would say it would be a disadvantage to be so tall. But at the same time, like growing up, like going through this with my son, when he was younger, he's tiny, right? He's 15 and he's 5'3" and he weighs like 120, right? Like he's tiny. And he always struggled with like really tall kids. Like, I don't know why, but he always did. And like, I remember he got beat when he was like 8 at regionals or whatever. And the kid, he was a better wrestler than the kid he wrestled, but the kid was about 6 inches taller than him. And they'd get in these crazy scrambles. And it was almost like he couldn't reach his ankle, or he couldn't, you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
So how did you feel in that regard? Did you when you wrestled, like, of course you're trying to protect your legs, right? In neutral. That had to be kind of a challenge for you, right? Being so tall.
Oh yeah. For being especially like my height, and I'm also wrestling my natural like weight. I never really cut weight as much. The most I ever cut was like 5 pounds.
Right.
In like a night or so. But that was cakewalk.
Yeah, not much. No, not bad.
But being so tall, you're also wrestling guys who are like cutting down from 200 pounds, who are naturally a lot more bigger and even stockier. And with that being said, they're naturally like a lot stronger. They're more like compacted. And so a lot of the time when you take like a shot, especially from my length, I have to get down even lower than usual, and so that's even tough. And when I take shots, I'm not very great at taking shots. So these like super impact guys see from a mile away, and they just sprawl, and I'm over there just like, oh, and I'm, like super length out. I don't have any like control or like strength, so I have to start scrambling out of there.
Did you have an issue with, now that you said that, it brings up another point. If you didn't cut but 5 pounds, you got guys coming down. I want to know if this is how it works in this division, because I know it's like this, in every other division. You weighed in same day though, correct?
Oh yeah.
So you weigh in, you got an hour or whatever you wrestle. If you got somebody cutting 25 pounds, he's going to feel like shit. And if you're not cutting but 5 pounds, dude, you're back up hydrated. That's kind of an advantage though too, right?
Oh yeah. I wrestled guys who were like definitely nationally a lot bigger. They were strong, but then they would fatigue. You'd start to notice like they would fatigue, and that's when I would like do my main thing was a snap and like snap down, go behind or sprawl go behind. So all you would need to do, well, all I needed to do was just like keep with the game, maybe push them, hand fight them, snap, and go behind. And that's how I would like usually beat them, because my inexperience in a way, I wouldn't know how to pin them. So I just wear them down. I would just wear them down with hand fighting, and then do a little snap and drag, go behind. So,
dude, so you never really learned pinning combinations when you were wrestling?
oh, I did, but every time I would try them, I would always end up short. If you could say, I would like maybe get them in like I'd get them in a position. I remember I had one kid, I had him in a cradle, but the ref wasn't calling the pin. I was like, damn it, why aren't you calling the pin? And I'm like holding him there, and I'm just like trying to like figure it out. The only time where I pinned someone was when I tried to put in legs. And I don't know what I did. I guess it was kind of like a barbed wire at the same. I had legs in, and I grabbed his arm, and I pulled his arm across my body and put my chest to the mat, and that was my first pin. Yeah,
Dude, I think that, just being able, even if you didn't have like a big background, to be able to pick up, enough to win some matches, dude, I think is pretty impressive, right? Because like there's usually a progression when you look at kids, right, that come up wrestling, right? Like,
yeah,
I say there's stages to it, right? And I've seen every stage, right? So like Bryson, when he started wrestling, and there's a kid that he wrestled against growing up all the time. His name was Jackson Lane. He goes to a private school up in Chattanooga now. He's a stud, man. And they both did like the same thing every match. Snap down, cow catcher, snap down, cow catcher. And that's what like little kids did, right? And dude, it was like, hold on one second. We just had some technical difficulties. My pop come down to visit, and he's like sitting in the background. But they both would like snap down, cow catcher, snap down, cow, and they were beating everybody with it, right? Like that's just what it was. Well, then that's like your little tot bantam division, 4 to like 7-ish. Then, you got, 8 to 10. That don't work as well anymore, right? So now you got to start learning how to shoot and how to sprawl and how to scramble a little bit. And then from like 11 into middle school, it's a totally different ballgame. So it just keeps kind of compounding, right? And for you to start at like 22, right? 22. If all you were good at that point was snap down, go behinds, dude, take it. That's amazing that you were able to get to that point in such a short amount of time and actually win some matches. That's very cool.
Yeah. I definitely have to say, like, that experience when I first went on the match, or went on the mat, you could tell that there was like an immediate gap between me and a lot of my opponents, because some of these guys, actually almost all of these guys that I wrestled against had like a background in wrestling, and I felt there was that gap. I guess that I'm fortunate enough to have like a little bit of athleticism left, especially from my college football days, where some of it came natural to me, like, the sprawling, how many times we had to sprawl, or like the amount of weight training we did. And I guess that translated over when I wrestled. But it was a good experience. First year I had a bad losing record of 6-13, but I didn't care. I was just happy to be out there and like enjoying the new sport. I was embracing it.
Well, what was your best? How many years you wrestled? 2?
Only 2.
How'd you finish your second season?
Oh, my second season. So before the second season starts, this is after the first season finishes, I go into jiu-jitsu. I ended up tearing my labrum, and I ended up having surgery. And for the first half of the school year, all the way from summer all the way to winter, I'm out of the game. I then get cleared by my doctor or the orthopedic, and I get a little bit of like maybe a week or two like of revamp of wrestling from the high school.
Right.
But that's only a week after I've been away for almost like close to almost a year.
Yeah, that's tough.
So I'm immediately thrown to the wolves right when I come back. And so not even a week in, I have to compete again after coming back from a surgery. So my like arm is barely back in. And oh my gosh, let's just say it was a rude awakening. But I competed in a little bit more than half a season my senior year. I end up racking up a few more wins, I guess, with a little bit more knowledge. And I finally placed in West Coast Conference, and I made it as a national qualifier. At nationals, didn't do too well. I ended up getting pinned every match. My second match, I ended up blowing out my knee.
I've seen that video, dude. That was brutal.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I almost tore my MPFL completely off. Yeah. And then that's when I found out my have this there's a groove that your kneecap sits on. It's supposed to keep your kneecap in place. Unfortunately, my groove is like very shallow or non-existent, so I'm very prone to dislocations on the kneecap. So, but
yeah, well, being 6'4" probably doesn't help either.
Oh no, it does not.
I was 6'2.5" at my tallest. Now I'm 36 years old, so I'm like closer to 6 foot. And you'll learn that too when you're about 35. You'll go from 6'3" to or whatever to 6'1". You'll be like, damn, dude, what happened? It used to be a lot warmer up here in this air, and you realize you're not quite as tall as you used to be. Dude, what possessed you though? This is a really interesting story. I didn't know a lot of this. What possessed you? You started, dude, it's so crazy. That's so cool, man. Like, I don't think I'd have had the balls to like try something like that at that age, like new. Because I was so like, for me, I couldn't just enjoy things. I was so competitive. Like, if I sucked at it, I was like, I ain't doing this. Screw that. And that was just the way I was wired, right? Like, dude, I suck at golf, right? I suck at golf. I used to love going and playing because I was like, I'm going to get better and better. But, dude, I'm just not good at golf. It's okay. And what do I not do? I don't play golf, right? Like, so, like, to be that age, and especially at that age, because, like, when you're in your early 20s, I remember, like, you're still kind of cocky a little bit. You're full of piss and vinegar, and you're like, hey, I'm the, you kind of, especially men, right? Young men. We have like this mojo-ish kind of swag about us, or at least in our heads, right? It may not be real, but like to us, we're like, and to put yourself in a vulnerable situation like that says a lot about your character, right? Like I don't care what happens here. I don't care if I'm good at it, bad at it. I'm just going to work at it. That says a lot about your character, right? As a young man. And dude, I think that's really super cool. I do want to say this though, and to understand. What possessed you for one, to do that, and for two, like for one, we kind of covered that, but to go into this like social media realm of this Sam the Squamous character that you created, like where did that come from? Like, especially being so new to the sport, but then relating to it so well. Like, where the hell did that come from?
Oh, so when after I tore my labrum actually, and I'm just over there in the sling, I would just be watching practices from the sideline. And during that time, I said, well, if I can't wrestle, I might as well do something related to wrestling. And so that's when I started realizing, I was like, wait a minute, I could just try and make these like silly videos. And I occupied my time with like these wrestling videos because it was just something to do while I waited around and kind of stay connected to it in a way.
Right.
And from there, I usually use topics of like what people thought about wrestling, especially what I thought about wrestling before I joined.
Right.
Like there's definitely a stigma behind it. And a lot of the time when I first started making these videos, I capitalized on that. Like, oh, wrestling girls, like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah.
Or like, oh, wrestling in a singlet, that's so, ugh.
Right, yeah.
Like, I look so weird. So at the time, I'm not too sure if I saw that too many other wrestling social medias like capitalize on that, like making fun of it. Because when I first started doing it, a lot of people were like saying, "Hey, you're damaging the sport." Blah 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 blah. Don't post this. And I didn't give a rat's at. Oh, sorry.
No, have at it. I've been dropping bombs, man. It's good. We're free flowing here, bro.
Okay. I didn't care. So I was like, well, I'm getting views. I'm a funny guy. I like to think I'm a funny guy. So I just kept doing it. And from there it started growing and it began this whole thing. And then my name, Squamous. I had to come up with a cool name when I first made my TikTok account. I was like, shoot, what's an interesting name that I could put because I can't just put Sam. It's kind of boring. So I opened up my anatomy book and I was like, I looked at the skull. There was I got to the section of the skull and there's a section called the squamous suture. And it's like a part of the skull, or a fissure or suture of the skull that's like super raggedy. And I was like, Sam the Squamous. Kind of weird, but I guess I'll stick with it. And that's primarily how my name, Sam the Squamous, even came about, was just because I looked through my anatomy book and just was like, oh, okay, that's something.
Dude, that is awesome because I remember the first time I ever seen a video, and dude, I'm really bad at TikTok, right? TikTok is not my thing. I think I relate more. I think I've learned over time that Instagram is like the platform for wrestlers.
Oh yeah.
And TikTok's cool or whatever, and I'll post on TikTok whatever I post anywhere else, but I don't go like crazy with it. But I'll say this, man. Anybody who would ever say, "Oh, you're damaging the sport" or whatever, let me tell you this. We were talking about Muggsy earlier, right? And he posts pretty regular about how D1 wrestlers hate his guts, right? They hate him. Why do they hate him? Because he's better at marketing himself than they are, right? But what is he doing? He's bringing eyeballs to the sport of wrestling, right? Like on a daily basis. He's bringing the eyeballs to the sport. Does it matter? Do you think Coca-Cola gives a shit how somebody finds out about Coca-Cola? I don't think they care. They care if they buy Coca-Cola, right? So why, as people that promote and try to bring more kids or, whoever, even if you're 22 in your regard, right, into the sport of wrestling, does it matter how we got you there or how somebody got you there? No. As long, it's just good that you're joining the sport of wrestling. So for anybody to say that, oh, this was damaging or whatever, it's like, man, give me a fucking break, bro. Dude, you were like very, and I said that when we first started, you were very relatable, right? Like, I remember in middle school, dude, I was a chubby little shit, dude. I didn't want to wear a singlet, bro. And I mean, I did it. And, after a while, I was like, oh, it's okay. I can handle this or whatever. But then, I think, the world changes, right? And times, just kind of, change, if you look at, and you can use, and I've always said this, you can use WWE, right, over different decades and watch different decades, and you can see pop culture in different decades, right? It's the only thing. Football doesn't change really. I mean, outside of some play calls, basketball really doesn't change, you know. But if you look at professional, like WWE, you know, which is a show, it's not a real, you know, you look at the 80s with Hogan, right? It was all about, you know, the good guy and doing the right thing. And then you look at, and then you look at the 90s, right? It took a big shift in the other direction. You got Steve Austin flipping off his boss and drinking beer. But then they had to tone that down in the early 2000s, right? Now you got the good guy John Cena, right? With the loving the kids and doing the right. It's kind of shifted back. So the reason I said that was, you know, the singlet thing, right? All of a sudden you got these kids wearing these damn two pieces, which I thought was stupid. Okay. My personal experience, dude, you're wearing a damn Under Armour like undershirt and a pair of gym shorts or whatever, fight shorts. To me, it just kind of took the whole essence away from the match to me. I can't explain it. It's like, now I know it, like who's number one. They wear those who's number one, like fitted shirts or whatever. And I think that's cool for like an event, like a big event. But like you show up to a duel, like we'll just make up some high school duel. And, you know, I understand maybe like certain girls may do that. That makes sense, right? Like, but when you show up to a duel and, you know, you got a lineup of kids that are all jacked up killers and they're all wearing their singlets. And then you look across to the other team and half of them's wearing those two pieces. And, you know, and it's like, I'm not really intimidated by that. Like there's no, you know what I mean? Like I think it like to a point like that can kind of become a thing because of like the world we live in and everybody's got to fit in and feel comfortable and whatever. And like, dude, that's not the real world, man. That's just not. So like anybody who had a problem with that, man, forget them, man. Yeah, it's awesome that you were relating in such a way that was bringing more eyeballs, and you don't even know it right now, but there's no telling how many kids you might have brought into the sport that you didn't even know you did, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very interesting to think about it. Like it's like you said, I don't even think about it until like, you know, you go to like a small little like wrestling meet for younger kids, and then they're like, oh my gosh, you're that guy from social media. I've at times said, or like ran into a kid was like, oh my gosh, you're that sus guy from TikTok. Yeah, I got that before. And I was like, oh yeah, that's me. But more often they're like, oh my gosh, you're that guy from TikTok or social media, that wrestling guy. We love your video. They'd take a picture. They'd be super stoked. And it was then, right, like in those moments where I'm like, huh, wow. I did not expect my videos to impact, like to do that. You know what I mean? And let alone like maybe get people into the sport. It's really crazy to think about it, like how a simple like social media video could like really impact someone, because we're in this time where like social media is like the big giant bread and butter of a lot of things, and that is ultimately how we get eyes to the sport as well.
Well, you look at Bo Bassett, right?
Bo Bassett, yeah.
Bo Bassett has completely changed the game in terms of marketing himself as a high-level recruit. So you look at him and, you know, Jax Forrest and Marcus Blaze, those are like to me, like your top couple guys, you know, and Marcus Blaze to me is pound for pound. Bassett's probably the best in the country. But that Marcus Blaze kid, Lord, dude, he's amazing, bro. And like, if you ever watch some of his matches, he's just really good. But if you look at their social media, like across the board, Bo Bassett's killing everybody on social media. And why? And here's the thing that he's doing that people don't even think about. The way he markets himself as a high-level wrestler, what's happening is you're seeing this younger generation, just like it happened with you, right? They're
Right.
like, I want to do what Bo Bassett does. I want to do like he's going to bring, say, I'm just making this number up, say 100,000 kids into the sport of wrestling, right? If you keep 15,000 of those, that's your next generation, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
I think more people, regardless of the content provided in the sport or any sport, there, whatever it is, if you're, softball, whatever, I think it's good for everybody because it brings it. Little kids will be like, well, I want to do what that guy does, right? So I think that's good for everybody. So what's your future plans, man? Like you're in graduate school. Let's hear about that. What are you graduating with? Do you intend to stay a part of the wrestling community for a long time in some kind of capacity? What's your goals here?
Yes. So I do plan to stay part, like a little bit part of the wrestling community, because right now it's kind of in a way a part of my identity. But the biggest thing that I'm focusing on right now is school, like you said, and right now I'm in the occupational doctorate program.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm going into occupational therapy school, and that's my ultimate biggest goal. And like a year ago, I was just trying to apply, working on applying and working just to save up the money to even like be up here. And now I'm here and I'm like making it happen. So that's ultimately my biggest goal because I want to be an occupational therapist. When it comes to wrestling, I definitely still want to be intact with the wrestling, especially the community, just because it just wrestling's different, man. It's taught me, it's the one sport where I've like partook in that made me feel like I belonged in, that made me feel like I grew, personally grew as an individual. And even if I'm not competing anymore, or maybe down the line, maybe next year I'll try and compete. But even if I'm not competing anymore, I do want to like have my kids wrestle as well. I want to like just see how the UNLV team is doing, check in with the Wailua team once in a blue moon. And yeah, that's my ultimate goal.
Dude, you know what I think would be? Do you plan to move back to Hawaii when you graduate?
Oh shoot, I want to, but I think I'm going to stay up here in Vegas. Yeah. Because mainly because the starting salary for an occupational therapist is the highest in Nevada. And on top of that, my significant others over here. So
Yeah, no, I get that part, man. I get that, dude. You're talking about kids. I think this is a good point to kind of close up on. We've had a good 50-minute conversation. I've really enjoyed it. I'll give you a piece of advice from a crazy wrestling dad or a former crazy wrestling dad.
mm-hmm.
I think putting your kids in sports is great. Let me give you the being a parent's the hardest thing in the world, and one day you'll figure that out. That also comes in stages. When they're real young, they'll run through a wall for you. All right, whatever you say, that's just what it is, right? When they hit about middle of elementary school, they start questioning things a little bit. All right, it's like, wait a minute, this made sense when I was 7. Now I'm 10. I don't think this makes sense to me anymore. Then when they hit middle school, it's over, bro. All right. I'm going to do it my way, and if you don't like it, you can kiss my ass. That's kind of the way it goes. All right, like the stages of life. All right. And one thing I wish I'd have done a little different. I pushed Bryson really hard when he was growing up, and I look back on it, and now granted, he was a really good wrestler, but like, at what cost was that? At times we argued and things, and I think looking back on it, I think that if I could give any parent or future parent advice on how to, don't make it about you at all, right? Your time's over. It's their time. And if they're good at it, great. If they're not, whatever. They're still your son or daughter. They're still your family. Like you have to try to find a way, something I struggled with for a long time. And I think that's a common thing. Most people as human beings, we're very competitive people, right? Like, and being like, dude, if me and you played checkers and you beat me, I would probably be pissed about it, right? Like, I just would. So in general, I think as human beings that are competitive, I think you got to find a way to divide that, especially when it comes to kids and your kids and things like that. It's like, hey, I used to look at it in a bad kind of way, like this is a reflection of me, but it wasn't, right? And instead of encouraging like I should have, I think I just pushed a little harder. So I just think as an advice to you, my friend, when you have a son or daughter and you put them on a mat, if they're the best in the world, that's awesome. If they're not, just, hey, man, keep working. And you would know that better than anybody because you started so late in life. But I will say there's a cool niche you should be a part of, okay? And even if it's just a snap down, go behind kind of thing, all right? When you go back out to, I think this would be super cool to see, all right? Mm-hmm. And I know you got your families out in Hawaii, right? I'm assuming mom, dad, everybody. Yeah. So when you go back to visit, all right, set up with that local club. I'm just giving you something that I think everybody would love to see, all right? Mm-hmm. Set up with that local club, get your significant other with an iPhone, and record like a little day camp with your Islanders. And I think that people would love to see that. And I think those kids would absolutely love it because you're their homegrown guy. And spend a day teaching snap down, go behinds. And I think for one, you're making these kids' days, man, because this is our guy. He's our guy. He's big on TikTok. He's blowing up everywhere. And then on top of that, man, you're staying connected and you're giving back to where you came from. And I think people would relate to that. I know I would. I would relate to that. And if you ever do that, tag me in it. I want to see it. I'll share the piss out of it. I think you as an individual are great for the sport of wrestling. And please don't ever leave, man. And if there's anything that I can ever do for you in any way, dude, reach out to me.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate all the advice and what everything you said. Thank you.
Dude, this has been awesome, man. I've been here with my man, Sam the Squamous. He's going to be an occupational therapist and make, $650,000 a year out in Vegas. Have his babies, put him out on a wrestling mat with his significant other. And, dude, before we go, tell everybody how they can follow you, brother.
Yes, you could follow me at Sam the Squamous, either at on Instagram or TikTok. That is, hold on, let me write this down.
Yeah. That'd be awesome. Put it up to the camera.
All right, let's see here. Kind of hard to fully.
Sam the Squamous. There it is.
Yes, sir.
Go follow our guy, Sam the Squamous.
Or you guys could follow the UNLV wrestling page. If you are going to UNLV by any chance next year, give the UNLV wrestling page a message. I could do my best to hook you up, probably to potentially join the team next school year for college. So
and somebody that did that and lived to tell about it at 22 years old. I can't emphasize that enough. Never stepped on a mat. Dude, that's inspirational, brother. And you're leading the way for like a unique experience. And I think that's awesome, man. But great episode. Episode 31 of the Bmoney Beastin podcast is in the books. Go follow Sam the Squamous.
Yeah.